Welcome to the 2D Path to 3D Plugin SORS tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a logo using alpha textures. Using alpha textures will allow you to use sections of a logo and animate them. If you are watching this within the Vistitle Quick Start tutorial package, the working files are in the File Asset folder within the SORS tutorial folder. If you are watching this on the website, you will either have to create your own working files or be content with just watching. To help create similar files, you could download a round emblem with an inner seal and an outer ring of letters. From this file, you will need to create 3 alpha elements. The first element will be the inner circle of the emblem. The second alpha element will be the outer ring with the lettering. And the third alpha element will be a horizontally flipped version of the outer ring file. You can use Photoshop or your favorite photo editing software to create the alpha files. The final product will have the center of the seal stationary and the outer ring rotating around it slowly. If you don't intend on using the rotation effect, you can use the original image and apply it using the same techniques that will be shown in this tutorial. Also, if you don't want the rotation on the back side of the object, you won't need to use the reversed outer ring image. So let's get started on creating a 3D logo using the 2D Path to 3D plugin. If Edius isn't open, go ahead and open it. Create a new Vistitle layout on an upper timeline. When Vistitle opens, go to the menu bar and select the Shape button. Keep this button pressed to acquire the Shape drop-down panel. Select the ellipse shape. Now move your cursor to the edit screen. With your Control key and left mouse button depressed, drag your cursor across the edit screen. This movement will draw a perfect circle. At this point, don't worry about the color. That will change once the plugin is applied. Hold the Shift key and drag the node or nodes that are needed to resize and position the circle. Keep the circle within the top and bottom inner safe area marker lines. You can use either the top and bottom of the circle or the bounding box frame lines as reference points. Click C to center the circle. Go to the menu bar and select the Title plugin drop-down arrow. Scroll down and select the 2D Path to 3D plugin. For those of you who have watched the Quick Start tutorials, you should be familiar with the 3D Text plugin. If you look closely at the 2D Path to 3D plugin interface, the main tools are the same as in the 3D Text plugin. The only item missing is the text control interface. So that we are all starting at the same place, either remove or reset the materials used for the 4 faces. The final face panel should have all of the faces connected to a single Phong material element. Click the Light tab and remove any lights that are in the panel. After you do that, you should have a flat gray circle in the edit screen. So that we can see any 3D adjustments, go to the 3D Transform tab and click it. Change the Rotate Y value to 30. This will now show us the sides and bevel. Click the Model tab to open the side and bevel adjustment panel. Before we get too far into this tutorial, if you need explanations for any setting or adjustment control, it would be to your benefit to review the 3D Text tutorial before moving forward. If you're not familiar with typing in exact values, after you type in the value, press the Enter key for it to be accepted. The next value box will then highlight. I think that's enough prologue. So let's get this tutorial moving by first adjusting the side and bevel settings. Set your subdivide setting to 1 and the expand setting to 0. If you set the expand setting too high and it is shown outside of the bounding box area, there is a possibility that the image will be cut off at those points. Now set the depth setting to 70. I want the bevel to be just a highlight and not a mainstay of the seal. So let's keep the width small. Use 7 for the width, 18 for the height, and 4 for your segment. You can adjust any of these settings to your liking after finishing the tutorial. Select the double side and smooth tick boxes and set your threshold setting to 100. Return to the 3D Transform panel and reset the Rotate Y setting to 0. Now that the basics are set up, let's create our 2D image. First off, let's create a bevel color. This will become the outer edge of the circle. Click the Materials tab to open the Face panel. Now click the plus sign to add a bump or Fong element. Either one of these will work fine for the bevel color. Since this is more than likely the first time you have worked with this plugin, I would use the bump element. Two Fong elements next to each other might present an identification problem. Now go to the Ambient Color box and click it. When the Color Select panel opens, select the dark blue color box and click OK. Link the bevel face to the bump element. As soon as the link is established, a small blue edge will appear on the gray circle. Now click the plus sign to add a reflect material. Link the side face to the reflect element. We'll return to this later. As the face panel stands now, the front and back face should be linked to the Fong element. The bevel face should be linked to the bump element, and the side face should be linked to the reflect element. Click the Fong element to bring up the Fong element control panel. At this point, we're going to add the first alpha texture element to the project. Click the Texture 1 image box. The Select Pattern panel will open. Click the downward pointing import arrow to import the 3 alpha files. Navigate to the File Asset folder and select the SORS Tutorials folder. The 3 files will be in this folder. Select the inner source seal, the outer ring source file, and the reversed outer ring source file, and then click Open. The 3 files will appear at the bottom of the Select Pattern panel. Deselect the 3 files by clicking the Select Pattern panel and then double-click the outer ring source file. The file will open on the circle. Now comes the fun part, adjusting the file to fit. Go to the Scale U value box adjustment. Click on this value so that you can scroll the mouse wheel to change the value. This value will enlarge the image outward on the horizontal plane. Take the value to about 108. Now move to the Scale V value box adjustment and scroll to adjust the vertical position. The vertical position will also adjust with a setting of 108. Being that we are working with a circular object and the files came from the same original file, you can expect to use these same settings throughout this tutorial. Now that the outer ring is adjusted, let's add the center alpha object. Scroll down to the Texture 2 image box. Click the image box to open the Select Pattern panel. Double-click the inner source seal file. the file will open in the center of the circle. Now adjust the file to fit. Once again, set both Scale U and Scale V to 108. I did mention that we were going to animate one of the alpha files. So scroll back up to the Texture 1 image box area. Make sure that your timeline cursor is at the beginning of the timeline. Go to the Material Timeline Expand arrow and click it. Now expand the GPU Matte Phong timeline as well. Go to the Rotate Adjustment and click on the Keyframe node. Move to the Timeline panel and scroll down to see the keyframe nodes. Return to the Texture 1 panel and click the arrow to the right of the gold keyframe node. The timeline cursor will move to the last possible keyframe point. Change the rotate value to 40. Play the file. If your image looks washed out and lifeless, there is a way to improve this. Scroll down to the Ambient Blend adjustment. If you like your graphics vibrant like I do, type in 100. This will make the logo pop. That completes the front side element setup. To start work on the back side of the object, go to the 3D Transform tab and click it. Change the Rotate Y setting to 180. This setting will change the view to the back side of the object. Keep in mind that all rotate settings are based on degrees. Notice that the back lettering is reversed. If that is the effect that you are after, you're done. But if you want the same look of the front, without the rotation and without using a different file, click the Materials tab and then click the plus button to add a new Phong to the face panel. The new Phong will be added to the bottom of the list. Link the back face with the new Phong material. Once the link is made, the circle will become gray with the blue bevel on the outer ring. Click Texture Box 1 to add the outer ring source file to the back face. Double-click the outer ring file. You will notice that it is still backwards. First off, change the Scale U and Scale V settings to 108. The outer ring will match up to the bevel. Now let me show you how easy it is to fix that reverse image. Rather than creating a separate file for the stationary back of the seal, go to either the Offset U or Offset V settings and move the slider. As you move the slider, you will see that both the forward and reverse facing images are available from this single file. There is a catch to this, however. The offset control is for static images and not images that will have animation applied to them. Go to Texture Box 2 and add the Source Inner Seal file. Change the Offset U, Scale U, and Scale V settings to 108. These settings will create a correct facing stationary back. Once again, if that is the effect that you are after, you are done. But if you want to match the front exactly, and I mean adding the rotation, this gets a little more complicated and confusing. So, scroll up to the header of the back face Phong control panel and click the Reset button. Move to the first texture box and click it. Double-click the reversed outer ring source file in the Select Pattern panel. This is the file that has the lettering reversed. Amazingly, the file will open up facing in the proper direction. Just remember, we are using a reversed image on the back side of an object. This would be the equivalent to the normal file on the front side. The only time that you have to use a separate file is when you are applying animation and you don't want the back image to be reversed. With this file, all we have to do is change the Scale U and Scale V settings to 108. With the proper facing image, there isn't a need for offset changes. Now go to the Texture 2 image box and click it. Double-click the inner source file. It will open, but in reverse. This is the same file that we used on the front side. As I said earlier, if you are not applying animation to a file, changing the direction in which the file faces is easy with the Offset Adjustment tool. So go to the Offset U, Scale U, and Scale V value boxes and type in 108. This will not only reverse the face, but size it to fit. Scroll back up to the Texture 1 image box area. Just as we did with the front side, place your cursor at the beginning of the timeline and turn on the Rotate keyframe. Click the arrow to the right of the gold keyframe indicator to move the cursor to the end of the timeline. Change the Rotate value to 40. Play the file. This composite, just like the front final working composite, doesn't have any pop to it either. So scroll down to the Ambient Blend Adjustment tool and type in 100. Now that the front, back, and bevel faces have materials applied and look vibrant, go to the 3D Transform panel and change the Rotate Y setting to 60. This will give us a good view of the side panel. When we set up the faces, we only link the side face to the reflect element. Click on the Materials tab to open the face panel. I'm going to try to make the side of this 3D object look like the side of a coin or medallion. To do this, click the texture box and open up the Select Pattern panel. Double-click the gold 002 JPEG file that you used in the 3D text tutorial. It should be very close to the source files. For the web viewers, this file is probably at the top of your Select Pattern panel. This texture file is installed with Vistitle. Now change the Scale U value to 50 and the Scale V value to 1. Lowering the Scale U setting will bring the lines closer together. Be careful to not make them too close, as you might get some flicker. Place the timeline cursor at the beginning and turn on the Rotate keyframe. Make that value 0. Move the cursor to the end of the timeline and type in the new rotation value of 2. This will give us a very slow rotation. Leave the Mirror U and V tick boxes unchecked. That now has all of the faces complete. So in keeping with making this look like a coin, go to the Model tab and change the depth setting to 56. Change the bevel width setting to 8, the height setting to 10, and 4 for your segment. These final settings should help make the object look even closer in appearance to a coin or medallion than before. The only thing left to do is to create the overall animation of the object. In all of the Quick Start tutorials, animations were created on the fly. In this tutorial, we are going to use a pre-made path. Click on the 3D Transform tab. Now move down to the Animation Preset panel. Double-click on the Fly 004 preset. Play the file. The basic animation is close, but not quite there. So go to the bottom right of the plugin panel and click OK to exit and return to the Vistitle desktop. When the Vistitle desktop opens, grab the end of the red clip and extend it out to 15 seconds. As you extend the clip, you can adjust the timeline timescale to make it easier to see the end of the clip. If your 2D path to 3D and 2D transform timelines are not expanded, go to the timeline and do that now. We're going to need to see the keyframes in this next section. Either press F10 or click the navigation button to move into effects editing mode. When I played the file, I thought there were too many rotations of the seal. To reduce the number of rotations, go to the 3D Transform panel and change the Rotate X value to -360. Remember that one full rotation equals 360 degrees. Using your time code, move the cursor to the 5-second point. Drag the ending Translate and Rotate X keyframes to that point. Now go to the 3D Transform panel and change the far right Translate setting to 115. Also, I want the starting frames of the clip to be in black. To move the image off screen, place the timeline cursor at the start of the timeline. Now go to the 3D Transform panel and scroll the far right Translate setting until the image moves off screen. This will need to be a higher negative number than the starting point value. Set it to -280. Play the file. Now that the overall animation is locked in, we can add the final lighting effect. Either press F9 or click the navigation button to return to graphics editing mode. You can now double-click the edit screen to return to the plugin. Go to the Light tab and click it. Click the plus button to add an Omni light. Drop down into the Light Control panel and click the Type of Light button to bring up the option list. Select Spot. A funnel will appear in the upper right-hand side of the screen. Verify that your timeline cursor is still at 5 seconds and then go to the Light Timeline and click the Expand arrow. This will allow you to see the keyframes. Move to the Light Control panel and turn on all of the position axis keyframes. Drag the funnel by the center node to the bottom left of the edit screen. Now move the cursor to 8 seconds on the timeline. Drag the light icon to the opposite side of the edit screen. Moving to this position will create a diagonal movement. Place your cursor at the beginning of the clip and play your timeline. The amount of light is way too much for the object. At the bottom of the Light Control panel, you will see two adjustments: the spot angle and the spot soft. The spot angle control adjusts the width of the spot funnel. This is much like barn doors on a Fresnel. The spot soft controls adjust the clarity of the light, much like the focus knob on that same Fresnel. I want the spot angle to be very small, so set that to 1. The spot soft will need to diffuse the narrow beam created with the spot angle setting, so set that to 20. For this tutorial, these settings will not be keyframed. If you scrub the timeline, you can watch the light icon move across the edit screen. Place your cursor at the beginning of the clip and play your timeline. And that is how to create a multi-layered alpha texture logo using Vistitle. I think the 2D Path to 3D plugin really shows the power of Vistitle. After completing this tutorial, reset everything and try different settings. That way you can get an idea how the settings work with each other. The front and back image setup may be a little daunting at first, but as with anything, once you learn how to use the textures, the process will become much faster. The only things needed to complete this project would be music and an event title. Here's an example of that.